Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, it's good evening. It's Alex, and I'm here to check out some Skylander figures. It's about time we did one of these, and gonna try and find out who is the best, who has the best initial tags. All right. So, as you can see, I've put all this together in a handy dandy spreadsheet, and we can go ahead and start looking at that a little bit. Try and get some of the interesting things to note out of the way. So I did forget to do one thing real quick. So bear with me. We're just gonna go to data, filter, and done. Okay, so as you can see, I just did the typical baseline attack with all of them. Couple of them, couple of these first ones that we started off doing, I didn't quite have the how I wanted to do it down. So for instance, these last ones, like Horn Swipe with Iron Jaw upgrade, that's kind of what I want all of them to say. The initial ones just have Sword Slash with upgrade, so you'll have to bear with me on that. But as you can see, there's quite a range going from just the initial DPS, damage per second, and so what we're going to do is smallest to largest. So Hoot Loop is a ranged attack right there, and he's got the smallest starting attack. And then that goes all the way down to Dark Stealth Elf, who has the highest starting attack. That also is just with the use of the Blade Slash. Now you can do a Blade Slash combo that they've got and that she's got, and that actually does less. That does about, I think it's 70 some odd. We can check it out real quick here. So if you do that combo, it gives like 65 per. So it's really, really, really beneficial to just continue to hit with the slashes, like just boom, 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 instead of boom, boom, boom. And then you got to wait until she resets. However, in a large situation where there's enemies all around, that kind of last combo does a lot more aerial damage. So that's something to take into account. But as you can see, you kind of see the more melee characters with their initial attacks higher, and then some of the more distancy type characters are going to have a smaller starting attack, like except for Heavy Duty Sprocket, which, well, she does her best, but she's wielding a pretty big wrench. Now the big thing with her is that she gets a turret upgrade, which is pretty cool, but that's and she gets to ride around in a tank, and there's no one else that gets to do that unless you count Zulu. But we're not really counting Zulu because a tank is not a rampaging boar. I don't even know if that is a boar, maybe a pig. But all right. So anyway, there's the kind of breakdown as it goes from that, and then if you upgrade their initial attack, we'll go smallest to largest there. All right. So okay, so these down here, they don't actually have upgrades, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. So we start now with Heavy Duty Sprocket again. That upgrade does quite a bit, but not a lot. Let's add another cell in here that does difference. Okay, so this is going to be the upgrade power, pretty much, or the upgrade effectiveness. And that's just going to be these two subtracting one another. And that'll give us kind of how much the upgrade actually gives you. All right, so let's we can go off over that one extra after this. All right, so let's continue on. So we got 60 all the way down to 101. So again, Stealth Elf being probably the number one right now that we've got statistics on. Number one initial attacking melee character, and she's got just an excellent attack right there. Now Roller Brawl again, right behind her, just a couple damage per second off. They're both very, very quick to get from point A to point B and can do a lot of damage quickly. Smolder Dash again, another very excellent upgrade right there. And Fire Kraken actually has a pretty intense upgrade that takes him from below 70 to over 90. And let's sort by their effectiveness. Okay, so Riptide is okay. This one, it's actually the same attack, but you can either do the Tetra attack with a hammerhead or with the swordfish. The swordfish gives you a higher damage per second. The hammerhead gives you less, but it does go over a greater area. Excuse me. Bazooka doesn't really give you too much of an increase right there. Bazooka with the Hungry Bees, and again, that's not including the last 4 hits of the bees. So it's pretty much just if you were to keep shooting it, that's the rate that you're gonna see. Football bomb again, not too great of an upgrade, and then you get down here to something like Spy Rise that has a massive upgrade from Spider Blaster to Spider Blaster with Future Tech upgrade. That's a massive upgrade, almost 30 damage per second upgraded there. Firecracken, Slobbertooth, both these are all excellent. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck if your buck is the gold that's used in the game. These are kind of a more reasonable range down here, like the 9 to 13 range. That seems like a pretty reasonable upgrade cost, but let's go back over to this. All right, so we got these guys right here, and then you'll notice some of the guys that are kind of good at both things are in the center here. Free Ranger being a pretty solid melee, and it's got some, well, when we get to the Ranger part, it's got some excellent aerial type damage. Night Shift, surprisingly very good 1-2 punch right there. He is just a beast and a half, especially with the shift base. I can't talk enough about the shift base being just absolutely disgustingly awesome. Giving you 3 lives, doing damage after you die, and then just so good. And then having the best dash in the game with a small attack on it. Now the dash itself, I'm not talking about like how much damage the dash does. That's like nice, but how quickly you can get away from something if it's going bad and re-engage in a different way, kind of the fight and flight mentality. So Night Shift is just an excellent character, in my opinion. I very much like the shift base. That's based off the shift base though. Night Shift, the night attacks aren't necessarily my favorite, but are still pretty awesome. Spy Rise again has that invulnerability when you use the rise part, but what I actually really like is ooh, that's wrong. All right, let's go to Warnado real quick and type in wind. There we go. All right, so there, now he's the right color. Okay, so Warnado, I really like this character as far as a non-swap. If you look at his effective health, it's ridiculous. It's not even close compared to anyone else that we've seen so far. Slobbertooth, I mean, we can pull up Slobbertooth statistics right down here. Go over to Slobbertooth. Now, Slobbertooth, I mean, it gets up to about 900 health, and he's got a 70 upgrade too. So actually, Slobbertooth is pretty good. I forgot about Slobbertooth. That was before we did the armor go around. So both Warnado and Slobbertooth, both very good at having resistance. Now I think that Warnado is actually going to have another upgrade for armor, and that's going to be because I think he has a flying where he can just kind of fly, and that increases his resistance and upgrades his speed, I think. And so we gotta do some digging on that to see what the rate is and see how much armor he effectively has when he's flying in the air, but that shouldn't be too hard. We'll just take Night Shift against Warnado in the battle arena and do some 100 level attacks to see what happens. And then you got both of these guys. I really like. I'm more of a fan of the kind of hit them hard and then get out of there type thing, which is Stealth Elf is probably my favorite, but that's just my personal style of play. So these are so far 21 that we've done, and let's continue on to the damage per second on their second attack. Smallest to largest. Alright, so the Honey Glob, not all that effective as an actual attack, but you can still do it. You got Dune Bug. His his Dune Ball is just not all that effective. And then you got up to Stealth Elf, and that's just one of her combos. Her actual stealth part of being a Stealth Elf actually does 0 damage. It just leaves a little um, mannequin in where she used to be, and you have to upgrade it all the way to get the mannequins to explode or do anything like that. So while it can do some damage, it's mostly meant as a story mode type use right there. So I went with the combo instead. It's not really a secondary attack, it's kind of a primary attack down here, so just take that into account if you're looking at it. I don't want you to get the wrong impression about the 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 attack itself. Derby Dash, that is a secondary attack that Roller Brawl has. It's again very melee oriented, but she can really do a lot of damage with her headbutt, and it doesn't have to even be that close. You can be relatively far away, and she'll zoom right up and deal 87 some odd damage to you. Even if you're really far away, excuse me, she'll only do 60 to you, but she'll do another Derby Dash portion if you're nearby. The Super Spy Scanner, another very good Spy Rise technique. So Spy Rise has both very very good ranged attacks. I'd say some of the best in the game that we've seen so far. Hoot Loop has a excellent flashback right there, but that's only assuming that you have one opponent. The Bouncing Betty Mines, pretty much the best thing that Heavy Duty Sprocket is bringing to the table at this point. There's a lot more upgrades to go, so it's by no means a far shot. You can take one of the ones that's initially very, very poor and turn it into one of the best. And then you take someone that like Dark Stealth Elf or Stealth Elf that has a whole bunch up front that's great. And her upgrades are very good, but not at the level that some other upgrades are. So just keep an eye on that. It'll even the field a little bit, but right now Stealth Elf is clearly in the lead with just effectiveness over time when you're trying to just destroy your friends in the battle arena. All right, so let's sort by these and just kind of look at the varying in the different types. So of the Earth ones that we've done, it looks like our primary attack is going to be headed up by Slobbertooth, and then his secondary attack as well. So just better than Rubble Rouser. For our fire guys, we're going to be looking at pretty close race. They're both pretty got some very good melee attacks. I would say that the edge goes to Smolder Dash here just because it's got that 94 with the upgrade. Although Sparkling Strikes does have an excellent upgrade, a little bit more damage per second. You get upgraded with the upgrade range of 20 rather than 17 or nearly 18. And then Firecracken does have a better secondary attack though. So that being the case, actually, you know what we can do? We can just insert another file here, and then we'll do total. All right, so we're going to go off of the damage per second from attack 2 and the damage per second for the upgraded. And then we're going to cruise that all the way down and see what we got. All right, so let's look at smallest to largest. So, that's dealing with the upgrade. No, I don't know why that's giving us 0. Oh, because there's no upgrade with that. So that's total with upgrade. And then we'll do a total without upgrade and see and compare. All right, so we'll do quick damage per second from attack 2 plus damage per second from the initial right here, and mirror that down and see what we got. All right, we'll go smallest to largest. Okay, so Bazooka or Bumble Blast having the worst just overall effectiveness, going off these. This doesn't include their synergy though. So when you get honey globbed, these bees are going to do a lot more damage. So that's something that isn't taken into account in this particular spreadsheet, but definitely will be taken into account when we compile all the statistics. Kind of moving along the lines here. Some of our not as effective. Just looking at these initial attacks anyway. Boomjet, Dunebug, Wham Shell, Stink Bomb, all relatively effective, but not super effective. Then you get into kind of the mid range. You got Rubble Rouser, Warnado, both of the fire guys that we've done, Smolder Dash and Heavy or Firecracken. Heavy Duty Sprocket actually is relatively effective because of that secondary attack right there that really does some extra damage. You can kind of see some lumps here between them. Spyrise having an excellent one, and then getting down to things like Slobbertooth, Wind Up being just a beast, just together wise, and then Dark Stealth Elf again. This is taken into this Poison Mist combo, which is really just a variation on the initial attack with some upgrades because her other one wasn't actually. You know what? I didn't have that for Dark Spyro or for Hoot Loop. So you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of these, and we'll resort this smallest to largest. So Stealth Elf falls in here just because she doesn't have that secondary attack that we looked at. Then you're looking at number one being Roller Brawl, just effectiveness wise, and Wind Up a close, well, not a close, but definitely number two. So all these guys just very effective at laying down damage. But if you're just looking to do one type of attack, then you might want to stick with something that has a higher just plain attack right there. And we'll see what the upgrade looks like. Let's see if there's much change. There's not too much change in the overall type thing, but the more effective upgrades are going to give you more of a change here. So for instance, Spyrise really leapt up because of that additional 28 that's given rather than only 13 given by Wind Up. So you can tell that additionally those extra points really start adding up. So this is like 186 now instead of 154 or 168. So those are the totals of the effectiveness. If you like to change up your attacks a little bit and get a difference between a ranged attack and a melee attack, for instance, Washbuckler really starts shining when you start adding the two together. You get the Sword Slash. Sword Slash actually has like an additional 2 upgrades that brings its damage per second up over 100. And so it's a pretty solid attack in and of itself. And the Bubble Blaster kind of sits at that 44 range, but it does a lot in story mode. You immobilize. You can have some piranhas do some damage to those entrapped foes, and you can also really get a cool defensive bubble around yourself if you go and you swap between doing the Bubble Blaster and then sword slashing. So getting that whole 119 combo going, and not to mention getting a defensive bubble which pops and deals more damage, deals additional damage to whatever foe popped it around you, and also kind of upgrades your resistance a little bit or increases your effective health, or also known as just increasing your armor for a short time span. So Washbuckler, just excellent when it comes to both of them here. Wind Up 2 has that spring shot, will launch someone into the air and give him a kind of a stun effect, and anything that's in the air, he gets an automatic critical effective. That's not shown here on these, but it's a pretty intense upgrade right there, rather than that like 6, 8, 10% chance of a critical hit with most of the rest of these guys in here. Wind Up will hit 100% effective anytime that they're spring shotted into the air. So it's pretty interesting. Wind Up is definitely one of the better characters, I would say, in my opinion. So just has a lot of options and can get some stuff done. So we'll go sorting A to Z and check these out just from the statistics perspective. So like we were saying, these guys, what's funny is that both of these fire guys right here deal almost exactly the same when you combine the two upgrades, and then Firecracking getting a slight lead with the like better in quotations upgrade with the glow stick upgrade. All right, now we'll move on to Bumble Blast. Again, one of the worst for these particular statistics, but again, it doesn't take into account the Honey Glob and plus the Bazooka, because the Bazooka will do that additional damage with that Honey Glob in there. So it's kind of an additive effect rather than anything else. And the honey sticks around for about 10 seconds. I think it's like 10.5 or maybe 11 some odd seconds. So that's like 11 seconds of doing an additional, I think it goes up to like 70 damage per second. You know, we can look it up real quick. So Honey Glob, and we'll see. So it gets up to 22 damage per 22 damage per hit, which is a rate of we want to do minus the last 4 hits. So it gets up to like 72 damage per second. And that's like going to last for 10 seconds. I think it says Honey Glob. Yeah. So it's 9.5 seconds, excuse me. So that's how long the Honey Globs last. Where were we going? Okay, yep. All right, so there we go with Pummel Blast, kind of explaining that rather low number right there. The Stink Bomb, kind of a middle type effectiveness, and Stealth Elf not having that additional secondary attack right here kind of hurts her. So these guys right here are missing some attacks, so their values are going to be a little bit worse. This, of course, is going to give you with that flashback being a pretty powerful attack, is going to give you a pretty solid Hoot Loop standing right there. Whereas Dunebug looks pretty solid with his attack 1, but his attack 2 Dune Ball not super great at 12.5 seconds or 12.5 damage per second. Going over to our tech guys, Countdown, our more meager option. And then you can look at Heavy Duty Sprocket having that Bouncing Betty Mines that really brings up her total right here, but is slightly behind almost all the rest right here. Spyrise is only barely better than the Wrench Whack, but really gets a great upgrade with that Future Tech, and skyrockets past poor Heavy Duty Sprocket, only getting an upgrade of 10 damage per second, whereas getting almost 30 damage per second out of the Spyrise upgrade. So just skyrocketed right by. That's an additional almost 20 per second. So, and Wind Up just right in here, just as being one of those very malleable but very good guys, and just can really handle some stuff. And his attacks just kind of compounding one another. And then all of the winding up itself is pretty interesting. So, that it doesn't do a huge amount of damage, the wind up itself, but it keeps him doing a really good short circuit at 71 damage per second. So it's pretty good to be walking around all wound up, which I think is the point of wind up. Kind of keeping an eye on that. And if you can manage to keep an eye on his wind up power, strength, and kind of use all of his attacks at the same time, I think he's probably going to be one of the better, like almost a tier 1 pushing effective Skylander. I think right now, just judging off of Stealth Elf is another one of those kind of pushing on tier 1. I don't want to go ahead and call them tier 1, but they're definitely pushing on it. Shift Base is like in a tier by itself. There's no tier high enough for Shift Base. It's just ridiculous with upgrades. I think that of the ones that we're looking at, those are the two that are really kind of that on that tier level. Roller Brawl being pretty excellent, but I don't think she cracks the tier 1 when you compare it with the likes of Stealth Elf and Wind Up. I think Pop Thorn also might end up making that. Haven't done his statistics yet, but we'll get to it. There are another couple that are probably in that tier 1 type thing. Starstrike, surprisingly, but Starstrike's going to be kind of like the Wind Up, where it gets into that tier because of how you play it. It's excellent if you know how to play it, but it's probably not going to be super effective if you don't know how to play it. Whereas some of these guys, you don't really need too much. You just go in and hammer away. Washbuckler, for instance, is a great one. You just go in and you try and hit, and it's great. And then you shoot stuff on occasion. So, looking at our undead friends, Roller Brawl being really high up there in the melee category, especially with that excellent derby dash with headbutt. Then we head down to the water friends, Under the Sea, and Washbuckler just being really high up there with the just double attacks and the sword slash upgrade. The Tetra attacks are pretty solid for Riptide and the Fish Toss, so it's definitely out there. I would say that it's a little bit slower than I'd like. I like the Sword Slash just because it really gets some damage down on the ground quickly, rather than kind of swing, wait. There's a little bit more of that, especially with the Hammerhead. And you can tell by the less damage per second. The Swordfish head does a lot more damage per second because he swings a lot faster. With good reason. A hammerhead shark is a little bit. It's depicted much heavier than the swordfish itself. Boomjet down here with the football bomb is pretty solid, but not all that great. And airstrike not giving you too much damage per second either. It does some, and it kind of heads out that way, but it doesn't do anything all that intense. And then Warnado being last on the list, and again, very very solid spin attack, and with the sharp shell upgrade, and the tornado is pretty intriguing as well. So he's definitely a solid guy, and I mean that with specific regards to the armor and his armor upgrades, just like Slobbertooth up there. All right, so that's it for this evening. Just wanted to kind of give a breakdown of those initial attacks that we've been working for all these times, and hope you guys kind of can take something away from this, and maybe help make your decisions on who's going to go where. And then as we continue to get a real full picture of, for instance, Roller Brawl's upgrades, if their upgrades kind of level out and she just kind of sticks to that 98, but then you got Washbuckler here, whose Sword Slash is at an 88, and then at a 90 something, and then heads up to 110 damage per second. I mean, that's something to take into account. There are also upgrades that really don't do too much in the battle arena or don't do too much in story mode. There are very few characters that kind of have an upgrade that does something for both every single time. There are a lot of things that aren't able to be used in the battle arena. For instance, a lot of the stun attacks that work really well, or the entrapping ones, like Washbuckler's Bubble Blaster, that just does straight damage in the battle arena. It doesn't kind of entrap them in that bubble for a period of time. Because, I mean, would you really want to be part of something, playing against your friend, and then all of a sudden you're just entrapped in this bubble and you can't do anything to get out, and they can just like keep wailing on you. And what's worse is if they just keep bubble blasting you, then you're stuck in that bubble the entire time, and then, well, you just lost. So it's kind of a good thing, but at the same time it colors the individual upgrades and upgrade paths with, well, this is a little bit better in story mode, or this is a little bit better in the battle arena, or sometimes both. Like, I mean, for instance, just a straight upgrade, like the spin attack with the sharp shell upgrade, that takes the spin attack from 73 to 84, and that makes a difference both in story mode and out of story mode. But then you get things like Stealth Elf, where her upgrades to her individual little mannequins that'll pop up if she's invisible don't really do too much in the battle room. You can kind of see where she's headed at all times, and while there are some things that hone on individuals, like for instance Pop Thorn's little spikes, they will hone in on some bad guy, and so that might actually end up being important if Pop Thorn was going against Stealth Elf, but it might not be, and we'll look into that. But all right, so that's it for this evening. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of kind of look into what we were doing, and I'll see you again tomorrow night. Have a good night.